Hello all, welcome to the class of PT335 of environment section. Now, as you all know, we have already covered this climate change. Then we moved to do the pollution aspect, and we completed this topic also. Then we move to this biodiversity topic. We have already covered this basic concepts in our last video. So if you have not watched the basic concept, first watch these basic concepts. Then we can start this international conventions and treaties and initiative. Before we start this session of today, I want to request you all that please provide feedback, whatever you feel about it, and then provide this feedback in the comment section, and we will try to improve our quality and hence serve you better. Okay. So now moving ahead. Okay, now we will discuss now under the biodiversity international conventions, treaties and initiatives. Now before I start this, I want to give you some basic concept of basic understanding and history behind this, so that you get you can thoroughly get this topic in the first two. Okay, now let us move to another slide. Okay, now now as you all know, I have discussed in my last class that biodiversity, what is biodiversity, okay, then how it is losing and degrading at a fast rate, and we also discussed about measures to conserve measures to conserve it. Okay, now why this biodiversity is losing and how we get to know about this, that biodiversity degrading. So this all the concept has a history behind it. Okay, what is the history? Now you all must be knowing that in 1750s, industrial revolution was started. Industrial revolution was started at a fast pace. So what was happening here? Coal was being used to fire the industries. Okay, and then urbanization follow, and industrialization was also happening. Industrialization was happening at the fast pace. So due to industrialization, urbanization, and burning of the coal and fuel at the fast rate, so environment environment began to environment began to be degraded. Okay, so many many people started concerning about this environment degradation, but in the initial state, no one cared about this. Okay, so all the focus was on economy and increasing the GDP of the country. So in the 1900s, or even in the late part of the 20th century, all the nations become concerned about the is environment degradation. So what happened in 1992? A conference was called of all the world leaders in Rio de Janeiro. Rio de Janeiro, that is in Brazil. Okay, Rio de Janeiro, and all the concerns with respect to the environment were discussed in this convention. Okay, now what happened? What happened? What were the outcome of this convention? There were majorly three or four outcomes. I have already discussed previously with you, but let me just list them out. United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. This was one of the major outcome. Then UN Convention to Combat Desertification. Okay, this was also one of the major outcome. UN United Nations Convention for Biological Diversity. This was also one of the major concern. Here we will discuss more about this in this lecture. And another of the outcome was ASHE targets. These targets were for the reducing the reducing the humans anthropological loss of environment, and hence promote sustainable development. So these targets were all about sustainable development and environmental conservation. Okay, so these targets were to be achieved by 2020. Okay, now but 2020 has recently passed, and we took all the leaders took a type of progress report of these AC targets. Okay, now when they found out that these targets have not been met, these targets have not been met, and we have already passed our target time. Okay, so now what was decided now? So let me take a new slide. Okay, now you know that targets AC targets AC targets have not been met, and biodiversity and environment degradation is happening at a fast rate. So there must be new framework for biodiversity biodiversity that needs to be adopted after these AC goals. Okay, so okay, one more information before I come back to this targets is that UN CBD, that Convention for Biological Diversity, has every year every year a meeting is called for all world leaders every year, that to discuss the biodiversity and how can it be made better. Okay, now recently CBD and these parties discuss these environmental concerns on a forum named Conference of Parties, COP. Every time they meet under a Conference of Parties, COP. So recently a COP was organized. Okay, COP has been organized since 1995, that UNCBD has come into existence. Okay, now COP 14 was organized by in China, in Kunming, Kunming city of China. Okay, and then COP 14 was organized in Montreal. But what happened? China continued its presidency with another member, so as to keep discussing on this concept of biological diversity. Okay, so after of the this outcome of this COP 15 was launch of Montreal Montreal Kunming biodiversity framework. Okay, this new framework has been adopted after or in the continuity of these AC targets. Now AC targets have been passed. Now new target has been announced for biodiversity in this framework till 2030 and 2050. Okay, some targets have been given for 2030 and some for 2050. So how this Montreal biodiversity framework will work? It will have a framework global fund for maintaining the biodiversity. Okay, biodiversity. So this fund is now what we are going to talk about in this news. So I hope you got the history behind this, and now let's discuss the news. Okay, so Global Biodiversity Framework Fund, GBFF. Okay, this has recently ratified and launched. This fund has been launched at the 7th Assembly of Global Environment Facility. So Global Environment Facility was made the guardian of this fund, and it has been launched by this facility now. Okay, so what is the purpose of this? Purpose is to finance and implement the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework that I already talked about. Okay, now how this fund will be governed? This fund will be governed by a council, GBFF Council, and who will be the members? 16 members from developing, 14 from developed countries, and 2 members from countries such as Central Eastern Europe and former Soviet Union. Okay, so seeing this is important here. The council's major role will be given has been given to the developing countries. So it is like a type of like what can we say, like चौंकाने वाली बात. Okay, like something amazing that developed countries have not taken the majority of the share of this council, and it has been given to the developing countries. Okay, now moving ahead, how the decision of the council will be taken, it will be taken by consensus. So what is meaning of this consensus? That even if one member does not agree to the use of the fund, then this fund cannot be used. So this will be, I think, a problem going ahead. But now, if they have decided that with the consensus decision will be taken, then so it will be okay. Now, how the financial management will be done? Financial management will be done by the bank, World Bank, which will be trustee. Okay, how the funds will be allocated? So the funds will be given for the environmental and biodiversity management, but fund allocation, 20% of the funds will be given for the indigenous led initiatives. Okay, so local projects, indigenous and local projects will be given 20% of the fund, so as to have local solutions of biodiversity. Okay, so prioritizing the support of small island developing states and least developing countries. So least developing countries and small island developing states has also been prioritized. Okay, how, where the funding will come from? It will come from governments, philanthropy, private sector, and financial institutions, etc. This funding will be raised from. Okay, now, so you have understood this all the concept of this fund, and you must remember that this all needs to be mugged up. Okay, this any one of the fact can be asked by UPSC in its pre. Okay, so this article is very important for pre perspective. So Cumming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, what is about? It was about it were adopted in 2022 in at COP15 held in Montreal, that I already told you, and replace the SC biodiversity target which were expiring in 2020. It is not legally binding. This thing is very important. This fact is very important. You must remember this one. Though though the CBD is binding, but these targets are not legally binding. Okay. Now this sets up four goals for 2050. For 2050, four goals have been set up, and these goals are very important and needs to be remembered at all the time. And 23 targets for 2030. Targets, you don't have to remember targets, but how many targets have been given? This is important. 23 targets have been given. Okay. Now, what are these goals? Four goals that we are talking about, that has to be achieved by 2050. So to halt the human induced species extinction will be halted. Okay, now equitable sharing of benefits will be shared equitably, sustainable use of the biodiversity, and closing the finance gap of 700 billion per year. So 700 billion per year finance will be raised for supporting this biodiversity initiatives. Okay, so what type of targets are there in 23 actionable targets? Some of the targets that you can be remembered are 30% land in wind water and will be protected by 2030. So this thing is called 30 cross 30 deal. So 30 by 30 deal is 30 by 30 deal is that 30% of the water, land, and marine resources will be conserved by 2030. Okay, reducing the rate of the introduction of invasive alien species. Invasive alien species will not be this rate of introduction will be reduced. So what are invasive alien species that you can cover from my previous videos? Okay, now cutting the global food wastage by half. So food wastage is to be reduced. Okay, species, that invasive alien species has to be reduced, extinction has to be reduced. Okay, 30% of the area of the earth has to be protected by 2030, and areas, high biodiversity important areas should not be lost. Okay, now reducing the 500 billion annual harmful government subsidies should be reduced. Okay, now mobilizing investment to close the biodiversity funding gap by 200 billion in year. So these are some of the main targets that can be remembered, but don't take the load to remember all these. But some of the things that are very important are 30 cross 30 deal, okay, and reducing the invasive alien species introduction. So these are some of the things that should be remembered all the time. Okay, so this was all about this framework and new framework, and hence also fund framework, and fund, both of which you must remember. Okay, this will keep on coming in every COP that is to be taking place in the future. In every COP, this framework and this fund will keep on occurring, and you must remember, and you must just learn it today. Okay, now global environment facility. Now we have already discussed, that global environment facility has launched this fund. Okay, so what this global environment facility is all about? This global environment facility is a funding mechanism that was established in same Rio conference of 1992. Global environment facility was launched. Okay, now this council has approved a disbursement of 1.4 billion dollar to accelerate the efforts of tackle the climate, biodiversity, and pollution crisis. So 1.4 billion dollar has been approved. So what is this? It is established in 1991 as a multilateral environment fund. It was launched as a fund to achieve the global environmental benefits. Okay, that I have already talked about. Okay, now objective. What are objective? Objective is the same. That is to finance the fund this sorry to finance the projects of developing countries in four focal areas, that is climate change, biodiversity, international waters, and ozone depletion. Okay, now implementing agencies. Who are the implementing agencies of GEF? World Bank, UNDP, UNEP. These are the implementing agencies. These will implement this fund. Okay, and membership is how many members, it is not important, but India is a member, it is important. Okay, other key information is the least developing countries fund, along with the GEF, global environment facility. This least developing countries fund has also been, and special climate change fund has also been launched in order to support the climate goals, and support these countries, that is least developing countries and small island countries, for their sustainable development. Okay, now International Day of Biodiversity (IDB) is celebrated every year on May 22. This fact is important for adoption of text of this convention. This convention was adopted on this day, May 22. Okay, this GEF finances, which projects are being financed. Five conventions are being financed by GEF, that is CBD, UNFCCC, okay, UNCCD. These are three main conventions that were the outcome of 1992. Okay, now along with this you have to remember two, that is Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants, Stockholm Minamata Convention on Mercury. These both are to be remembered along with the three that we have discussed today. Okay, so now moving ahead, what are the reports that are being released by Global Environment Facility? So this Global Environment Facility does not launch any report. Okay, does not launch. In the previously it was not the concern of Global Environment Facility to launch the reports, but this time they have launched a report, and hence this report becomes important. What is the name of the report? Inclusive Conservation Initiative, ICI report. Okay, okay, this has been released along with the convention international. Okay, what are the highlights? Indigenous people own 40% of the terrestrial protected areas. Whatever the protected areas that has been declared, the protected areas that have been declared the protected areas, 40% of the areas are held by owned by indigenous people, that is local people, local inhabitants of the air, and 37% of the locally ecologically intact landscape. 30% the landscape that are ecologically intact they have not been disturbed, are owned by this indigenous people. Okay, otherwise wherever the growth and development has come, then in those areas the the ecologically landscape has not remained ecologically intact. Okay, so less than 1% of the climate change mitigation and adaptation fund is directed to IPCL, indigenous people and local communities. Though these people are majority stakeholders in protecting the environment, but only or maybe less than 1% of the fund is given to them. So this is like a dichotomy here. Okay, this report hence talks about this dichotomy and hence becomes important. Only these two facts are important. Otherwise, nothing as such is important. Okay, now moving ahead, global declaration on of river dolphins. Okay, now so I have already told you that what is biodiversity. So biodiversity includes all the animals and plants. Okay, so biodiversity exists at all places. That it can be on land, it can be underwater, it can be in the river, ocean. Okay, so uh, the ecology of river in the ecology of river, dolphins play important part. Okay, dolphins are a type of fish that are mammals. Okay, mammals, and they are big in size and largely eat small fishes. Okay, now 11 countries. Okay, so why are we discussing this news is because of high pollution of rivers, pollution of rivers, why are this pollution of rivers being taking place? So this pollution of rivers is taking place because of the sewage generated from the municipalities and all the regions. Okay, large use of the fertilizers in agriculture. Okay, and industries. So what industries do? Industries use the chemicals and just without treating them, they flow it out in the river. So due to these, the rivers pollution of the rivers is increasing. So due to this pollution, the dolphin or ecology of the river is getting disturbed, and hence dolphins are dying at a large number. So population of dolphins has decreased very highly. So now, due to this, given this background, this news becomes important that 11 countries have signed a first of its kind global declaration of river dolphins by 2030 in Bogota, Colombia. Okay, in Bogota, Colombia, river dolphins, global declaration of river dolphins has been launched. Okay, what is this declaration all about? What does this declaration say? Is it was adopted by river dolphin range states, that is Bangladesh, Bolivia, Brazil, Colombia, Cambodia, Ecuador, India, Nepal, Pakistan, Peru, and Venezuela. So these all majority of them are Latin American countries, and South Asian countries like Bangladesh, India, okay, Nepal, Pakistan. That you must remember that these are the South Asian countries. Okay, and some are Southeast Asian countries like Cambodia. Okay, so this becomes important. What type of countries are involved in this dolphin conservation? Okay, so what type of dolphin are found where, we are going to discuss it in the next page. But what are the aim of this declaration is the halt and reverse the decline of river species. Okay, both Asia and South America. So halt and reverse the decline of the population. Okay, to safeguard the remaining species and enhance the health of the rivers. Enhancing the health of the rivers. So whenever the rivers will the ecosystem of rivers will increase, become better, the dolphins population will increase. Okay, so what are the river dolphins? They are the top predators in the river ecosystem. Okay, now what are the species of dolphin? Dolphin has many species, like in the Amazon lake. Okay, dolphin is called boto, boto, boto in their local language. Okay, so They are freshwater dolphins and they are endangered. They are in endangered category. Okay. So what are the of categories of protection? So this can be critically endangered. Just for your understanding, I am saying you. Okay, just let me take a new slide. Okay. Now here. Okay. So categories of protection. So what are the categories of protection? Okay, internationally there is an organization, International Union to Conservation of Nature. International Union for Conservation of Nature. Okay. So this is organization, IUCN in short, which marks the protection status of all the species on the planet. Okay. So what are some of the status conservation? These are extinct. So whenever an species is not seen for at least 50 years, the species, even a single member has not been seen for 50 years, then this is called extinct. The species is declared extinct. Okay. Another category is extinct in wild. So any member of this any species has not been seen in wild, seen in wild, but some of the species, some of the members are taken in the zoo or some captive breeding program to conserve them and to try to increase their population. So then these species are given the status of extinct in wild. In They are not in the wild, but they exist in some zoo or some conservation initiative. Okay. Now next category is critically endangered. Critically endangered. So species of this category exist in wild, but their number is very little. Okay, it may be less than 250. So this type of species are called critically endangered because when this population will start decreasing, they are at the verge of extinction. They can get extinct. Okay. Now moving ahead, another level is endangered. Endangered is a lower category than critically endangered, but these species are also in the wild, but their number is also not very much. Number is less, but this number is greater than the number that so that it can be declared critically endangered. Okay, it has somewhat problem. Okay, problematic numbers. Okay, now another category is vulnerable. Okay, so these species have higher number, good number in the wild, but they can be vulnerable whenever some catastrophe or some climatic extreme will come. So they can get extinct. Okay, so they are vulnerable, but they are not like critically endangered or endangered category. Okay, now another level is near threatened. Near threatened. So near threatened are the species which does not require any protection. Okay, so they are very on the verge of extinction. If this is the protected category that these require protection. So okay, this species, like we should consider an example. If above this line species is there, then it requires protection, and below this line is there, then it does not require protection. So these species like near threatened are sitting here only, near about it. So they can turn into vulnerable or they can remain near threatened. Okay, and another category, that is last category, is least concerned. Least concerned. So these categories, these animals or these species are such that they are not of any concern today. Okay, now we have discussed all the conservation initiatives and categories. So now you will understand what is endangered. Okay, now moving ahead, uh, Ganges. Okay, we have already discussed about Amazon. Now we are discussing about Ganges. Ganges, Ganga. Okay, commonly known as Shushu. Okay, so in Amazon, this dolphin is commonly called as Boto, but in Ganga it is called Shushu. Okay, now, moving ahead, Ganga and Brahmaputra River in India and Bangladesh. It's also categorized as endangered. Okay, so what are the threats that are happening because of the construction of dams and barrages? So, okay, poaching, fishing, synthetic fertilizers used in the agriculture. So, because of synthetic fertilizers, pollution is increasing. Due to fishing, these dolphins are being captured and dying because of this. Okay, poaching, and because of dams and barrages, when the dams are constructed in the river, so the migration of this these type of dolphins from this area to this area becomes difficult. Okay, so there is like a barrier in their movement, so this leads to hampering in their existence. Okay, now in the Indus River, these are called bulan. Okay, Indus River. Okay, Indus River is in Pakistan and Bees. Okay, the intertributary of Indus River in Pakistan. This is also called. This is also categorized as endangered. Okay, another dolphin is Irrawaddy dolphin. It is found in coastal states of South and Southeast Asia. Okay, in Myanmar, Indonesia. This is also called as endangered. Categorized as endangered. So all the dolphins has been categorized endangered. Okay, so whenever the question about the dolphin will be asked, you have to categorize it endangered. ठीक है? Okay. Now moving to next. Oh, okay. In the next video, we will move towards the this protection of plant varieties and farmer rights. Okay, by giving you some history about it. Okay. Now, okay. Meet you in the next videos. Okay. Please give the feedback in the comment section. Okay. So how to improve this video.